Recently, another person who Fiona Harvey AKA Martha from Baby Reindeer went after sat down with Piers Morgan to clear the air and set the record straight on her ordeal with Martha or Fiona or whatever you want to call her. Either way, we're going to talk about it in today's video. Hello, Sofa Squad, and welcome back to the sofa. Sofa's back there. I'm right here. You're right there. Now, today, y'all, we are going to be revisiting the case. I shouldn't even say that. The Baby Reindeer saga at this point, really. I mean, it's just so much is going on with it. I will do a little bit of an overview before we get into it. So we're going to be revisiting that. We're going to be watching an interview with Piers Morgan and an attorney, or a solicitor, I should say, Laura. This was another person that Fiona, aka Martha, became obsessed with. That was a character in the Netflix series. People found her, all this kind of stuff. So that's what we're talking about today. We'll be watching clips, I'll be reacting to them, and just giving my opinion on it. Remember, it's just my opinion. I'm not a professional. I'm not a lawyer. None of that fancy stuff, okay? I'm just a guy with a sofa and some opinions on true crime. Now, if you do want to follow me on the Insta, on the Instagram, like it says on the screen right there. Well, go on, give it a follow. It was down in the description. Go on now. Now, before we get into the clips, let's talk about a quick overview of the case for those who are just jumping on board with it. Okay, so Netflix recently released a series. It's titled Baby Reindeer, and this is what the description on Netflix says. It says, when a struggling comedian shows an act of kindness to a vulnerable woman, it sparks a suffocating obsession which threatens to wreck both their lives. So this appeared, y'all, this is like one of the most watched things on Netflix ever, okay? Which did not pan out well for the real people involved in this. So this is the story of Richard Gadd. Now, he is the main character in it, or one of the main characters, and it's his story about his experience with who they call Martha in this series. So here's the thing. This came out, and very quickly the internet found out who the real Martha was, as well as a lot of these other side characters, which is who we're going to be talking about and watching today. And her name was Laura. Now, when this all happened, Martha turns to Piers Morgan to do an interview. She wants to set the record straight, right? Now, she currently has like all these different lawsuits going on at this point. But here's the thing. When she did the interview, yikes, Rama. It did not bode well for her at all. Okay. A lot of people within 5 seconds definitely were like, yeah, 100% this is her, 100% unhinged. Now, one person she depicted in the show, that's, like I said, who we're talking about, is mentioned by Martha in the original interview as that of the solicitor, Laura. In fact, let's watch a quick clip, like a recap that they did in this current episode we're going to watch, of when they interviewed I keep calling her Martha, Fiona, whatever her name is that we're going to go by. I'll probably interchange her name between Martha and Fiona in this because I'm so used to calling her Martha. But let's just watch this real quick, and that will put us on the page of where we're about to go.
The Sun reported an interview with Laura Wray, who you've referenced, who accused you of inappropriate behaviour whilst you worked with her.
She headhunted me from another firm because she needed someone to do employment law. And I'm pretty good at employment law, so... She
said that she had to sack you days later because you were completely incapable of behaving yourself.
I walked. Her staff were really, really rude to me.
Y'all, go on and get it. Go drinking from the damn cup with y'all. That whole side note, that whole thing should absolutely infuriates me. And I'm not even personally involved in this. When people do that, it's so condescending. Now, keep in mind, that's just a couple of things that she said about the person we're getting ready to hear from. Completely different story from the person we're going to hear from. 100% everyone, there's two sides to every story, right? It is what it is. So we've heard Martha's version. We're getting ready to hear Laura's version. Laura says that she was identified from the series by the press, like before they even figured out who Martha was, right? And in this, Piers Morgan will actually reference some of the original articles from newspapers that came out about the original case involving Laura and her husband.
This was the Sunday Mail, one of the top Scottish papers at the time. MP wife and the stalker, your husband Jimmy was an MP at the time.
Yeah.
And it was a front page splash story, so this wasn't a quiet.
So, I looked up one of the articles on like one of those old newspaper things or whatever, and let's actually visit it for a minute and just read a couple of zingers from it. Now, this is from the freelibrary.com. I'll put the citation down in the description if you want to go read the whole article. I'm just going to read a couple of things from it. And again, this is from the article from the original paper, so this is not me saying this. This is not my research. This is not my information here. I'm just doing a couple of zingers, as I call them, from here. So it says, Solicitor Miss Wray has become the target of Fiona Muir, whom she sacked from a trainee post at her firm, McPhail Lawrence Partnership, in 1997. Miss Wray, wife of Glasgow Ballaston MP Jimmy Wray and the mother of an 18-month-old son, was so worried about Muir's behavior she issued her staff with panic alarms. Now, I wanted to put that one in there because keep in mind with the thing about the 18-month-old son, when we hear some evidence or testimony or whatever you want to call it from Laura in this interview, because she's going to be referencing her son and the situation with that and how Martha allegedly used that against Laura to do things. Now, one of the things too that the article does cite, I'll read the first line. It says, a woman who waged a campaign against Donald Dewar is now stalking MP's wife, Laura Wray. So, and she does talk about this in what we're getting ready to watch. So it's like she, meaning Fiona AKA Martha, has gone after her husband and now her, numerous other people as well. And again, this is alleged at this point. Now, it quotes Miss Wray in this article as saying, we were only one of a string of solicitors who gave her a job and found her completely incapable of behaving herself. She was only at the firm a week. Now, towards the end, it does say she denied she was a stalker and claimed she'd only been contacted by Miss Ray's office to complain about her treatment. Muir insisted she had resigned from the company and not been dismissed. Now, if you did watch the first interview, Fiona, aka Martha, was interviewed by Piers. She does say this in that. We just watched that little clip of it. And again, that's just a few of the little things. If you want to read the whole article here, you can look it up in the thing yourself and look at it. Let's go ahead and just keep going into the current situation with Laura in this interview. Now, Laura said that she watched Baby Reindeer. Like, people were telling her, like, you need to watch this. And she was like, I was blown away by how accurate the actress was. The nuances, the way she spoke, everything. She's like, it was uncanny similarity. She was like, she's an amazing actress, which I find very interesting. But Laura says once she realized what was going on, that this was out, here's her story, she was like, it was triggering. And when you hear her story, and again, it's alleged, this is Laura's version, there's, two sides to every story, but her story, it's frightening, okay? So I can only imagine what it would be like to turn the TV on and see this, and you're like, what? And then you yourself are being portrayed in this, and then your phone starts ringing off the hook. Oh. And you're like, I just got rid of this, and now we're right back here. So back to the position and like she said type situation. While Martha made it out like, I was headhunted, I was, they sought me out. I was doing this internship. Laura has a very different version of how that went. Let's hear what she has to say.
Let's go back to when you first encountered her.
Yeah.
Obviously, she says that you headhunted her to be a specialist in the employment law at your firm at the time. Is that true?
No. She was looking for a traineeship. She had been looking for a traineeship for about 4 years and couldn't get anyone to take her on, or at least I think she'd been taken on twice before me, but for very brief periods of time.
Okay, so there you go. So Laura says she was seeking it out. Fiona says she was sought out as a headhunter. Somewhere in between is the truth. I would imagine because so many people have similar stories, we'll hear from Laura that, solicitors who had the same story where she's going and begging them for this situation, and she gets in there and her behavior is just out there. Now, obviously, like I said, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a therapist, I'm not a shrink, I'm not any of the professional stuff, so I can't properly diagnose someone. I can just go by my own experience in life and then through the lens of the cases we look at. And if this is true, so whatever character Martha is really based on, that person, again, we can assume it's Fiona, but, it's allegedly right now. She's saying no, whatever. But the uncanny, erratic behavior that is described by so many people with her is frightening. If you've dealt with someone like this in your life, talking with a lot of you in the comment section, or when I've met you in person or whatever, and we talk about what brings us to true crime and whatnot, so many people have experiences of dealing with these personality types. Not saying some people have like a criminal type thing happen to them or a family member, that type thing, but just in general, whether it was a spouse or a family member, whatever. So what I'm getting at is, if you know, know type situation. If you've dealt with people like this, this person does seem to be extreme, right? There's varying levels of it, and the extremities of the things I'm hearing, I'm like, whoa, right? This is like completely unhinged behavior that she's doing, if this is all true. But it's also incredibly infuriating and really scary when you deal with personality types like this, just simply because you don't know where they're going to go, right? What they're capable of. And again, this whole thing of like leaving hundreds of messages and this and that, and the stuff we saw depicted with Richard Gadd, just imagine that energy directed at you. Now, let's keep going. Now, one thing that Martha's really good at, and we saw this in the show, Baby Reindeer, is getting into people's heads with personal information and finding out stuff about them. She even did it with Piers Morgan in the interview where she seems like know his age and know what happened to him, and she drops those nuggets with him as if to let him know, you know, I've been investigating you, and that's probably what she does. So Laura has the same type of experience. Let's listen to a clip where she talks about this with her.
So then when I got engaged to Jimmy, she sent me a congratulations card. So I then got another letter from her saying, oh, I'm disappointed you haven't interviewed me for a traineeship. And I felt rather bad about that if this was somebody that I'd met and perhaps overlooked. So I invited her to come in and see me, to talk to me.
Now, what Laura's describing here is she hasn't even met her at this point, okay? She's just talking about, I use Martha interchangeable with Fiona. So Martha, AKA Fiona, however you want to say it, reaching out, trying to get this position, right? And coming there. And basically she's saying she made it like we knew each other, and she would send this stuff, like this personal stuff, that's kind of a little bit more personal. Like imagine if you interviewed at a job and you researched the person, and you, well, let me rephrase that. You haven't even interview, like you're trying to get something, you find out the person, you're sending them stuff and you're researching them, and you see on their Facebook, oh, they just had a wedding, so you're sending that to them, you're doing this, you're doing that. It's just like overstepping that boundary to where it's a little bit like, how did you know that? Or what about this? Or what about that? This is what Laura's describing. And again, you hear her, one of the things that people with these personalities get away with is they are banking on a person being nice. A person, I mean, really just that being nice, just like Laura said, you know, I felt bad. I had an interviewer. She said she was disappointed. You know, if I know this person, I've been rude to them, you know, but that's not the case at all. Now, Laura will say she wasn't daft. She wasn't, you know, she seemed credible, right? And she was like, you know, during this interview, she brings her in, she realizes, number one, oh no, I haven't met her. But number two, she's like going into like all this super personal stuff about her family, finances, stuff like this, where she was like, you know, I'm not going to repeat it, but she was like, I felt sorry for her, and I think she wanted me to feel sorry for her. So she ends up accepting her to bring her in. She only lasts like a week or two. I mean, it goes downhill fast. And the behavior that she's going to do, like, I'm just like imagining going in for a job or an internship, anything like that, and pulling these cards at all, number one, but especially within a short amount of time in the very beginning. Now, Laura does say that she does have proof, like, yes, she does have this law degree or whatever, but she doesn't seem to have ever actually practiced it. I'm talking about Fiona, aka Martha. So she does, you know, she gives credit where credit's due. She's like, yeah, this part's true, this part's not true, right? Now, Laura will say that after she got rid of her, she went to another person. Like, this is just what she was doing. She was going to other, like, solicitors, getting these jobs, and then causing severe havoc in their lives. Now, one of the things that took place is, you know, Laura's describing what her tasks were, and she's like, look, she can't legally give advice or do anything like that. You're literally, basically what it sounded like was a gopher and, you know, a boy Friday, a secretary, whatever you, this type thing. Well, one of the things that Martha was doing is taking like a hotline number. It almost sounded like what we see here in the States is like, you know, have you been in a wreck or whatever? Call this 900 number, 800, whatever it is. She was taking that information down. So basically all she's supposed to do is just be like, hello, beep, 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 beep. Okay, cool. Like, that's it, right? It's not that complicated. But oh, she made it complicated.
I wasn't there all the time, but essentially she was rude to staff. She shouted at people. She was inappropriate with a male member of staff. She tried to follow a male member of staff home. I mean, all sorts of things happened. She threw a book across the office and hit somebody with it. But on the hotline, she was heard to be saying to people, oh, you don't want to come here. I'll give you the name of another firm of solicitors. So we were paying all this money for this premium rated hotline, and she was giving the details of our competitors to individuals.
And did you...
My gosh. Just, y'all, this is like, like a week or two with your job. I mean, clearly, okay, yeah, this is an unhinged human being, whoever it is, right? To do these kind of things, throwing books, yelling, screaming at people. I mean, you just don't, like, you don't do this stuff normally, right? And it certainly isn't acceptable at a place of work. And then to be calling up talking about, you don't want to come here. You need to go down the road to our competitor. Oh my God, I would be horrified. Okay. Now, Laura will describe another situation where Fiona / Martha, whoever, was asking for a sub. It sounds like some kind of like loan or something like this. And she's going to one person in this office, and they're like, we're not going to do that. So then one day she bursts into Laura's office, and she's just in a panic. Oh my gosh. There's a guy in the office. He won't leave until I repay him. It's for these repairs for a car, this, that, and the other. It's drama. Completely trifling, trifling story. And you can imagine, this is at your place of work. You've burst into an office. Remember, you're brand new here. Calls a scene, I need money. And she's like, we don't do that. But number one, Laura's sitting here like, somebody's causing a scene in my waiting room with my other customers in there. This isn't cute. Let's hear what she says about it.
And I thought, goodness, somebody's sitting in my reception. Anybody else who's waiting there will think I owe this man money. So I said to her, well, what's this all about? And she said, well, I owe him for a car repair.
Can you imagine going to your boss? And this isn't it. This is like you begged for the situation within the first week or so being there and doing that. And like somebody shows up enough to know where you work like that, begging for money or demanding money that you owe them. I mean, come on. So as you can imagine, Laura's like, look, let's figure this. Here's the money. Go pay this man. Get rid of him. And she's like, and also keep the whatever other money that Martha had coming to her, whatever. Laura's like, look, you need to just keep that money to get yourself to float yourself so you'll have money for food, to do this, to do that, right? And then Martha was even like, I went down to her bank and smoothed things over with her there. She fixed whatever crazy financial stuff she had going on and like got it all figured out for her. But then she comes back from doing this, and this is what she says, this is the reaction that she gets after doing all this for her.
And when I came back to the office, she started saying to me, oh, I've been on the phone all afternoon to the Law Society to find out what will happen if I go bankrupt. And I said, well, Fiona, if you want to be a solicitor or ever be in a partnership, that's not the way to go. So anyway, I made a suggestion to her that she might want to sell the old car that she had, which had been the cause of the bill for the breakdown. And at that, she just went completely crazy and started screaming at me. Very similar to the scene in episode 1 in Richard Gadd's show.
What was she screaming?
Don't you speak to me like that.
Now, here's the thing. When she said this, number one, again, I'm going to revert back to, think of when you've dealt with people like this, where 1 second everything's fine, and you could say something in the next that just sends them into a rage. It doesn't matter that you just paid like this, just smoothed everything over, paid her bills, went to the office, did all this, and makes the suggestion, maybe what if you got rid of the car? And then she goes off, and I don't know if that's called that narcissistic injury, or like when people like that have situations like that going on perceive an insult or a criticism, and there's zero ability to handle it. And again, I'm not some shrink, right? This is just, me watching too much damn true crime stuff, But, and again, I'm thinking of very particular situations in my life where I have dealt with people with that personality thing like that. And like, not obviously this exact scenario, but scenarios similar where you're like, I just did this for you and now you're biting my head off. Like, what? Like, are you crazy? Like, and then number one, you're thinking, okay, well, point taken, never helping you again. But these people like this, like the Marthas, they don't seem to see that. That's what perplexes me with them, is they don't get that, like, they are their own worst enemy is what I'm getting at. Now, Laura told another story where she says that Martha, aka Fiona, whatever, calls up another solicitor who apparently had like polio at one point, so they couldn't walk, and was basically like, look, everybody at this office hates you. They all make fun of you. They all talk all this ish about you. Can you imagine? And again, keep in mind, she's only there a couple of weeks. So you can, all this stuff right here, and then there's other little things, these are the main highlights of it. You already know. She had to go, okay? And when Laura let her go, woo! Oh, that's when the trouble starts.
And then she said, I'm not leaving. I'm going to phone the Law Society. I'm not leaving. And she then started shouting and screaming, running around the office. And eventually, my cashier and I, Caroline, had to get one arm on either side of her and actually march her out of the office.
Can you imagine? But again, in all seriousness, that's scary. Okay, that is incredibly unhinged. And again, this is just a matter of a couple of weeks. So just side note, I'm sitting here thinking, when Laura's watching the interview, with the first interview that Fiona did with Piers, and seeing her like, yeah, and like, it's her. She's on national TV, and she's saying that I was rude to her. She was like, whoa. If all this is true, of course, let's keep going. Now, here's the thing. This, when I say was not good, it set her off on like a tirade for a couple of years, okay? Laura said that she was leaving hours worth of messages every day. She was filling up our thing. Now, remember, this is back when voicemail wasn't like it was now. It was more like a timer type thing. I don't know how it was over there, but at least here that's how it was. So it was more like a length. It's just like, she filled up the thing every day. Like leaving these horrifying messages of, I'm going to get you, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Well, then she starts contacting other solicitors, faxing them, doing all this type of stuff, sending all of this like vile information about Laura, her firm, all this type of stuff. And finally one day, like this dude like calls up and he's like, look, I don't know you. I don't know this person, but I'm letting you know that they are like sending this out like en masse to people, and I feel like you should know about this. So number two, number one, whichever one I'm on right now, I don't remember, but she was like, oh, my staff was petrified. And that's where in the article, the news article, if you read the whole thing, or if I mentioned at the beginning, she was giving like them panic alarms and stuff like this. I mean, they were scared of her, because think about this too. This is such unhinged behavior. This is not normal. This is not even a normal disgruntled employee. Okay, this is like bizarre behavior. And so you don't know what direction that this could go into. Now, here's the thing. Remember how he talked about how Laura had the 18-month-old and all that kind of thing? Okay, so she said, Fiona or Martha starts saying, basically like making accusations that Laura was doing things to her child. Okay, and this begins like, it's like, okay, look, this is not good. This is a breaking point, right? Now, Laura will also talk about another solicitor who took her on and fired her. The same day he fired her, he goes home and there's two social worker people waiting there talking about, we got all these allegations about you were doing things to your kids, this, that, and the other, made his life miserable. Then also, Laura talks about she went back to university. It sounded like she was doing something for the bar or something like that. I'm not 100% sure. But she gets there, and who does she see? Now, remember, at this point, it's been like a minute, but Martha, aka Fiona, she's there and she's following me around the campus. She's standing near me. She's doing all this stuff. And she was like, finally, I make a complaint. And she's like, I go and like, look, hello, this is not good. And she was like, here's the thing with situations like this, especially back then where this was not normal, especially for like a female to stalk another female. You already know what they were saying. It's just, catty women, the whole 9 yards, right? Not paying attention to her. Because again, and she'll say this even at the end, and I'll say it now, and this is true for today, right? You pretty much have to do some major harm to somebody for the police are going to get involved. And so especially like this where you're explaining this, and again, this is like 20 some years ago. They're going to be charging off like whatever. I can already kind of hear the mansplaining that probably went behind it, to be honest. Of like, it's just women being, they'll work it, that kind of thing. Well, clearly it was not that, right? But again, she was able to get away with this for so long because she was good at kind of dodging the system.
She knew that I'd made a complaint about them. So one day, just after I made the complaint, I go home to find two social workers at my door saying to me, we have some very serious allegations. So I said to them, well, come in.
I mean, can you imagine? So she did the social worker thing to her too. Now she'll go on and say, look, her conversation with the social workers basically was like this. Before you say anything, I'm just going to describe to you a situation with me and some other people, and you tell me if this rings a bell. And they're like, yeah, okay, Yep, basically so. And again, this is just a breaking point. It's like, look, she's trying to get kids taken away. She's doing this and that. This is insane, because also what she was doing is she was calling these social workers up using another student's name. Fiona wasn't even at the school. They were like, she's not technically here. So she's just showing up, right? Doing like whatever she's doing, right? It's so weird. You can only imagine. Now, this is where Laura says, I finally contacted the police, started getting like the law involved. And she was like, the police didn't do anything, of course. And she was like, here's the thing, Martha's talking about like, oh, there's never been any legal actions and there's this and there's that. Well, Laura provided Piers with some documentation, and she basically breaks down on the show. Like, she's like, not breaks down, but like she breaks down the process of, this is what I did over there and how I went about bringing legal action against her and how it kind of worked out.
Well, in Scotland at the time, there was no procedure for harassment type cases. The only thing you could use was this procedure for interdict, which is when you want to try and get the court to stop someone from doing something that you fear they may do.
Now, Laura will go in and explain more about this and the legal Smeagol aspects of it, what Martha did not do, that type thing. And also you hear where she says at the time, they didn't have anything for harassment. Remember, this is different times. So even now, to look at how frustrating it is, and again, this is, I know I'm in America, this is Scotland she's talking about, but in general, you hear these common themes in a lot of places where it's like, it's just hard to bring charges against people when they haven't actually hurt you or done something like that, which is scary. Now, also, I can slightly see a reasoning, because you don't want it to be so easy that if it was so easy, Martha would have done this to other people. Innocent people. You know what I'm saying? So that's one of the things, but we see this happen all the time, right? So it's one of those like gray zones that some people take advantage of, and other people are put out there on Front Street, and then horrible things happen to them, and it's like, okay, well, now that this has happened, we'll do something about it. It's like, well, it's too late, right? We see these cases all the time, right? It's either child protective services or social services for like, a DV type situation, and it's like, nope, he actually has to take your life, and then we'll come help you. And it's like, I don't think it's supposed to work like that.
And she then would have had to put in defences. Now, what she says is that there is copy correspondence that I've sent you where she contacted someone at Drummond Miller, one of the more senior partners there, who's now a judge. She contacted him to say that she wasn't going to send him a copy of the defences, and she was terribly busy, but she would get them in the next couple of days. She never put in any defences at all.
And this right here would benefit the other people involved, but also it wouldn't help out Fiona in this way. One thing that struck me watching this is how Fiona kind of disappears at times. And just like this, we're getting ready to hear Laura finish off Sam, where she kind of goes away for a little bit after this, right? We kind of saw the same thing with Richard in his story. And again, depending on how much of it is accurate and whatnot, although Richard would seem to pull her back in, I felt like Richard was getting something out of the situation. And so when it would be like she disappeared, it was almost like, well, where'd she go? It was something weird about that until it got horrible, if that makes sense. Because she does seem to just kind of go, it's almost like either someone else or something else takes that attention, that obsession, and she focuses on them. Unless you come running back and be like, hey, Martha, I'm right here. She's moved on to this person over here.
So the interdict lasted for a year and a day. And knowing that she doesn't know anything about procedure and wasn't a qualified solicitor, we reckoned that she might not know that it wasn't actually going to be valid a year later. So it was valid for a year and a day. I never heard from her for 22 years. So the interim interdict did what I was hoping it would do.
Amen. And here's the thing. So she's like, yes, it was the best thing possible. It seemed to work. So this is what I'm talking about. Imagine all that, and then you turn the damn TV on and Baby Reindeer's on, and your phone starts blowing up. Can you imagine? My stomach would have dropped. Because here's the thing. People like her, she doesn't want that attention, right? She was like, huh? She's not looking for that. But here we are. Now, here's some other things. She said that Netflix never contacted her in the beginning to be like, hey, we're doing this. Can we get the proof from you of this? Or they never fact checked it in the beginning. Once all this drama popped off, basically she's like a week before this interview, Netflix reached out to her. So that's one thing with stuff like this where I'm like, why wouldn't y'all have done like I mean, seriously, I felt like just good faith. They should have at least reached out to some people and been like, we're getting ready to do this. But it's just the same thing as like Gypsy Rose talking about the act where she's like, I never talked to them or whatever. I just think it's weird when they do shows like that and they don't consult on some level. Now, on that same note, clearly they were doing something right because the woman who played Martha was like spot on. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, there's something there. But again, if I would be frustrated too if I was some of the people that were depicted in this weren't told. Now, she also says that she can't believe when she was watching that interview that she's up there talking about, I never harassed her. She's like, oh, what? You know, and again, this is the whole thing where she's like, you know, and again, the police can't do anything about this type of stuff unless something bad happens because she has reached back out in the wake of all this to be like, okay, let me prep. You know, let's get ready. You know, so it's almost like you can just feel the exhaustion where you're like, oh my God, this poor woman. She's going to have to fire this up again. And you know, I mean, I wouldn't want to do that. Now, let's look at one last clip before we close out with some thoughts.
But certainly online, I've had, you know, adverse comments. There is now a Fiona Harvey support group who are commenting that I look like a man and that I am Richard Gadd's trans girlfriend, or they're suggesting that may be the case. And I'd like to refute both of those, Piers.
Okay. We could have gone all day without those closing thoughts. The internet's gonna internet, right? I mean, it's just the internet's gonna internet, okay? There's gonna always be two sides to every story. There's gonna always be two versions of everything, right? This person's version, that person's version, the facts in the middle with the evidence and the receipts and whatnot. So it is what it is. You know, I think what's gonna happen is, again, right, well, not I think what's gonna happen, what is happening is, you know, there's lawsuits, you know, Martha has her, AKA Fiona has her, you know, lawyers lined up. I mean, this is huge. One thing that probably took place with this is that, of course, when you do a TV show, you are hoping it's going to do well. You know, and Richard, with this story that he's put out there in various formats, and now it's here on Netflix, well, of course you want it to do well. I don't know if you're planning on something like, does anyone plan on something going viral and the implications from it? You know, because this basically, in essence, went viral. You know, the internet, this is like Tiger King 2.0. The internet basically stopped, or the world was like, huh? What's Baby Reindeer? And just everyone looked into it. And I mean, you know, and the internet it, right? And so I don't think anyone plans on it. You might hope for it, but you can never estimate the reach of like something going viral like this, especially when it's like you're documenting this insane story of this person. Of course people are wondering, is this real? Is this person real? Did this happen? And when all this starts popping up and people like find out who she is, you know, I mean, come on. And then the other victims of the case, and it's like, these people are like, look, I mean, if you've been harassed by someone like this, you just want them to go away. You don't want them to be, you know, put up on a pedestal or given a show or whatever. I mean, come on, right? So it'll be interesting to see what comes of the lawsuits. I am no legal person at all, so, you know, I don't know. I personally would think that there's not a lawsuit there just simply because of the fact of probably telling the truth. But then again, I'm also like, I don't know the legalities of making a show about somebody without their permission. You know what I mean? Even if it's true, it's like, you know, I mean, what can you do with that? You know, when things become public record, if somebody's just coming and saying, here's my story about this person, you know, this is what happened. You know, I don't know, but I think we'll probably find out, right? Will there be a season 2? Who knows? You know, one thing I'm curious to see is because basically for me it left off at, you know, and spoiler alert if you haven't watched the show yet, and I'm not going to give specific information away, but it basically, you know, it was a very human ending of things aren't always pretty, things don't always end in a wrapped up bow. Richard kind of seems to just go back to the traumas that he knows. Don't we all? You know what I'm saying? The familiar is the familiar, you know. And so with that, I'm very curious to see what would happen. I'm very curious to see, has this fired up like, is she restalking any of these people? You know, because she doesn't like them, that's for sure, especially after the show. So anyways, if you've watched it, let me know. And I'm talking about the show itself, but if you watch either of these interviews, especially this one, since that's what the video is about, let me know what you think. I mean, do you believe Laura? You know, I personally do, right? I don't have a reason not to. There seems to be so many other people that stories line up about it. But again, where does that get us at? I mean, nowhere. It doesn't matter. I'm just somebody with a camera and a sofa, right? It's just, you know, I'm just watching this on the sidelines unfold from people saying, you need to watch Baby Reindeer. now we're here at this interview, right? So anyways, that's it. If you're watching, I do appreciate it, you hanging out to the end. I thank you very much. We do ask that you drop some sofas down in the comment section for myself and Roscoe, who is in spirit with us, to come and hang out and talk about this case and all the other ones we talk about here at the sofa. And until we meander our way on down to that comment section, we'll see y'all soon. I just wanted to say thank you again for watching the whole video, and also thank you for being part of the Sofa Squad. Special thanks to all the Patreon members, channel members from both of my channels, everybody who likes, shares, subscribes, comments in the comment sections. It helps the channel out so much. Now don't forget, I do have that other channel, the podcast channel. That's where we go live, we hang out, we talk. We have kind of sort of a schedule, but just be sure and check it out. I'll put it up here on the screen. Also, if you're looking for merch, be sure to check out my Teespring store. I'll put that up here. And then, like I said in the beginning of the video, if you want to follow me and Roscoe on the Instagram, go on, check it out. It's right here on the screen again. But once again, thank you very much. I really appreciate you being part of the Sofa Squad, and I'll see you in the next video.